What's going on, guys? Nathan back with Western Reviews, and today we're going to be taking a look at the OneTwoFit bench, which is a flat, incline, and decline bench with a 9-position adjustable headrest. If you're new here, please subscribe. We're on the road to 250 subs. Chapter is down below, but the TLDR for this one is it for around 100 to 130 bucks, depending on the sale that you pick it up with. You're gonna get a lot of versatility in the bench because of this adjustable back headrest here. However, because it's a cheaper bench, you're gonna have some instability and a lot of play in some of the movements. And there's no attachment port off the front, which means what you see is what you get. It's just a bench. Full review, let's go. We're gonna kick this review off with the feature that I think is most interesting and is why I actually picked this bench up to review for you guys. And that's this adjustable headrest here, right? So this, I think, is all the new craze in adjustable benches. For example, the new ABX bench that just dropped has this feature where you can drop the actual headrest down, and we'll get into kind of how that offers more versatility. But something worth noting is that there's no numbering on the actual head pad angle. Now, I don't think that matters as much as it does for machines and needing numbering for that, like on this multi-flight, for example, because this is more of just a, what do you feel is good for the particular movement you're using it for. But I think numbers would have been a nice touch there. Now, like I said before, there is 9 positions that you can actually adjust in, with the lowest one being the ability to lock it down back and completely flat. But if this feature is completely new to you, I'm just gonna quickly cover some of the benefits of having a adjustable back headrest and what that can kind of offer in your gym. So the first thing is chest supported rows. So if you're gonna be doing any type of chest supported rows off of a pulley system, typically that back pad is gonna get in the way of you doing that. You're essentially gonna be making out with the bench. But being able to drop this down, you're able to do those rows just fine without the bench kind of interfering with what you're using. Now, you can also drop this down and use it for just like any type of overhead press. Usually people like a utility bench, a lower back pad for doing something like that. Now, it's also good for any overhead work. So you can pop this pad out, although I don't necessarily recommend this, especially for an adjustable style dumbbell where if it was to fall, it would likely break. But you can rest the dumbbell on the headrest here at the flat angle and have an easy setup to get into to do your overhead double tricep extension, or you can drop it all the way down and get a deep stretch in just your single arms going all the way behind your head as well. And the last thing it's pretty good for is just a fun little space to kick your toes whenever you're in between your rest period. Now, the only con of this that I could really think of is that depending on your height, you might have your head fall right into this little crevasse that's created by having this headrest here. But I mean, we're talking maybe a centimeter of space there. So I don't think that anyone is really going to be short enough, or if they are, that it's really going to bother anyone that's going to use them. But speaking to the rest of the adjustability, we have multiple different angles here to adjust the actual backrest itself. So we have 0, 20, 35, 45, 50, 73, and 85. And the reason I can spout those off so easily is because we have laser cut numbers on an extreme budget bench, which I think is pretty impressive. Some of the more costly benches don't even do that. So I thought that that was worth pointing out. Now, the seat itself is actually adjustable too, also with laser cut numbers, and adjusts 0, 10, and 20 degrees so that you can get yourself in line with whatever movement you're doing. Now, you can drop this all the way down and have a fully declined bench. That said, there's no catch or anything for your feet, so you're very likely to just slide right back off the edge because this vinyl isn't super grippy. So, you know, the option's there, but it's probably not something that you could take advantage of too much. Now, the last thing that I wanted to kind of point out here are these leveling feet. Now, I think that this is a feature that's specific to these imported cheaper benches, and I wish it was something that would be refined and added to the more expensive benches, like still budget, but more expensive, like Kepi, Rep, things of that nature, where there's a little wheel to balance the bench out, but not these plastic crappy little knobs to do it. Because I think that a lot of the people, especially that are in garages, have uneven floors that slanted downwards, and that being able to adjust the actual height of the feet themselves is pretty useful. Let's chat specs and features for the bench now. So the bench itself is rated to support 1,400 pounds, including the person that's on it. Would I trust 1,400 pounds on this? No, probably not. But that said, I think it's gonna support plenty for what the average gym goer would need. So no power lifter, but for the average gym person, like I said, I think it's gonna do the trick there. Now, the bench itself is just under 50 pounds. So that's a good thing and that's a bad thing. It's a good thing because whenever you grab the handle off the front and you're looking to cart this thing around, you know, it's very light off the front. And I actually took a fish scale to measure how much that actual felt load is, and we're looking at only 11 pounds felt off the front foot. So really light, so easy to move around, but not heavy enough to weigh it down during certain movements. So I talked about chest supported rows earlier. The problem with those, at least in the variation that I showed with the cables, is that you can't go heavy with those. As soon as you do go heavy with something even just like 90 pounds, this bench doesn't become anything other than a seesaw for you to ride out during your gym. Some people may have a good time with that. I personally don't want to do that. And so, you know, one of those more sturdy benches that are 80, 100 pounds, something like that, are going to perform a lot better in those movements than something like this would. Now, the height off the floor is 18.5 inches from the bottom of the floor to the top of the pad. The actual length of this is right around 4 feet, so 48 inches. So it is a bit on the shorter side. And then the actual width itself is 10 inches. So if you're someone who likes something like a Rogue Thompson fat pad or something like that off your flat benches or something, you're probably not gonna like this because it's not gonna have much surface area for you to really dig your shoulders into. That said, you know, I don't find a problem using this bench, that being the case, but just something worth mentioning, I think. Now, there is a pretty sizable pad gap here, that being 3 inches. However, and I'll show a closer picture up of this, they have a very interesting design to where instead of the hinge that would typically be in here in the pad gap, it's just kind of a drop down connection point. So although it's a pretty sizable 3-inch gap here, it doesn't really feel too bad even if your butt lands on the inside of it, because it's all just cushion here that's 2 inches thick, by the way, instead of a hinge going right up the so it's pretty comfortable in that sense. And I think that this is an interesting design that a lot of benches should adopt to avoid having to worry about any hinges or anything impeding on your ability to use the bench effectively and without any pain. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about is the fact that it does have wheels for it to roll around on. That said, they're about this big. I'll throw a picture up of them. And so, I mean, there's no other way to put it than they just suck. So, you know, if you're looking to use this bench long term, chances are it's going to be best if you could just replace those with a little bit of a bigger wheel. But it's nice that the option is there and that there's a handle off to the front in order for you to be able to grab and cart this around. And so I'm sure with that being the case, that there's a handle and wheels, one of the biggest questions is going to be, can this stand up? The answer to that is yes, but with a little asterisk. As you can see here, the ladder is open. So instead of a closed ladder, making sure that this doesn't pop off, it's open. So you can set it down, but you have to be careful because something like that can happen and all can go wrong, right? So I like to kind of push it to where this part of the pad is declined, and then you could see it holds fine. But you know, like I said, you just have to be careful because it can collapse like that, and you don't want something like that going wrong, dinging up the bench or other pieces of equipment that are around, probably like I just did right there. The actual feel and performance of this bench, I'd say for the price is about what you'd expect, maybe even a little bit better. So starting off with the comfort of it, we have our 2-inch pads and our semi-grippy but not really vinyl. I'd say it's generally comfortable. The padding itself leans a bit firmer, a bit harder, but I actually prefer that whenever I'm doing any pressing movements. So that's kind of a pro to me, but if you like something that's more cushy, more comfortable, then you may not enjoy the padding as much. Now I tested this out for about all the movements that you could think of that require a bench, mainly with pressing movements. So I tested out the flat bench, and that felt pretty good, but I will say that because of the open ladder design and the cheaper build, that there is a lot of lateral play specifically that comes in with this bench. So, you know, whenever you're setting up and digging your shoulders in, you'll feel a lot of instability coming into the side, but then when you actually start to press out, that's when it could start to feel good and just like a standard bench. Now, the actual incline press felt good as well. The shoulder press felt good. I already talked about the chest supported rows from the cable, but using it for the purpose of a dumbbell chest supported row off the back pad, that felt pretty good, actually surprisingly good. And so I think that that's one of the better pros of being able to adjust that headrest is to use it for that. And for single arm movements like preacher curls, I tested it out for, and it felt really good during that as well. So overall, I would say that the actual performance of the bench is pretty good. You have to bear in mind that it is only like 100 to 130 bucks. So it's not gonna be the most stable, the most comfortable bench in the world, but being at this price point and having the headrest that drops down, I think makes up for it in a sense and allows for multiple other doors to be open for additional exercises that you can get out of it. They're performed very well. One last thing that I want to point out that I think contributes the most to the instability, and I'll put a picture of this up, is the square for the front foot instead of a bar. So I think that that's where a lot of the tilting and instability can come in because there's not a lot of surface area for it to balance out at. And so I think if they ever did a version 2 in the future, that it would be ideal to have the long bar there. That said, it's a give and a take because since the long bar isn't there, you can get your feet all the way up and under the bench and be able to get some leg drive in your pressing movements. But I think that a lot of people would prefer the stability over being able to get those feet tucked under because I think that's more of a power lifter move. But just something that I thought was worth pointing out. That's gonna do it for the full review of this OneTwoFit bench. Just to tie everything up, I think that for the price point, if you're looking for an ultra budget bench that has a lot of versatility, that this is gonna actually be a really great option. For around this price point, I couldn't see anything that had the ability to lower this headrest, which I touched on how that adds a lot of versatility to the bench. And because of that, I think that this, in my opinion, is the front runner option for a good starter bench. Now, if you're looking for something that feels extremely stable, this probably isn't gonna be the bench for you. If you're lifting a ridiculous amount of weight, this probably isn't gonna be for you. If you're looking for something that isn't just a bench and has a full ecosystem, this isn't gonna be for you. There's no attachment port off the front. You know, that said, if you're looking for just a bench that does exactly that and does it decent for the price, that this is gonna be a pretty good option. If you like this review today, please like the video. If you're new here, subscribe. We're on the road to 250 subs. And if I missed anything, leave a comment down below. And if I didn't miss anything, still leave a comment. Help me out with the algorithm. That's gonna do it, guys. I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.